Is early access worth it? The War Within guide.
Let's break down the War Within Early Access. It starts August 22nd, and there's quite a lot of things to get into. So, in terms of time, 3 p.m. Pacific US, 6 p.m. Eastern US, 11 p.m. UK, midnight Central European summertime, and luckily for them, 8 a.m. over in Sydney. Now, the way expansion launch will work is that the introductory quest will just trigger in-game at that time. So you can be logged in and you won't need to do anything. And I certainly do recommend you log in well beforehand because login queues, of course, could happen. Now, that'll take you through the introductory quest line, after which you'll be in Kazalgar, but in its advanced access state, and that does mean that quite a lot of things are going to be different.
All right.
Like your keybinds, if you've done them right, because we just published our deep dive into keybinding over at Bellular.games, as well as our keybinding tool and a host of other guides and a new lore walking episode. There's going to be much more for the War Within's launch, and seriously, over there, you guys are making a difference. It is the best place to support my team. We've got big plans for it. And I mean, we've had a few hundred new members over the last month, which has been crazy. And that momentum has just got the team fired up. But okay, let's talk about what you can and can't do early access for the War Within. The entire campaign and all the side quests are going to be available, and that means that yes, you can level fully from level 70 to 80, and once you hit level 71, you'll get access to hero talents, and those you'll have maxed out by level 80.
This is the thing I'm the most excited for. By far and away, the most thing I'm excited for is just leveling with zero pressure, because literally the whole game is still locked behind a time gate. There's no way you can do real endgame content. So I'm just going to really RP walk the shit out of this and just enjoy the whole leveling process. It's going to be real good.
You play there, you can do as much as you want, no penalty, no restriction, just go play the full thing. Now, as you level, you'll find both dungeons and delves, both of which are active during early access, but they're a little bit limited. So, dungeons are limited to normal and follower mode only, so no heroic, no mythic 0, or mythic plus.
Right.
And to level 80, those normal dungeons will be dropping eye level 541 non-upgradable gear, which is quite low, but I mean, this is early access. The entire point is that you're not really worrying about gear or anything like that. As for delves, they will be open, but you'll be limited to a maximum of tier 3, and at max level, that'll be eye level 554 gear that for the early access period won't be upgradable. Now, this is just going to be enough for you to basically try out all the delves, level up in them a bit, and just start leveling Bran, but really that is about it. As for PvP, there ain't much during early access. War mode is there, but proper gear progression and that sort of stuff isn't, and the honor cap will...
Imagine somebody just becomes a complete asshole and just decides to war mode kill people for the entirety of early access, completely fucking over the early access. I mean, obviously the other people are going to have to be in war mode too to actually fuck with them, but man, talk about ultimate degeneracy, just killing people's early access time.
Will be set to 4,000, increasing to 14,000 at launch. Then there's Renown. Renown will be capped at 25, and of course, one of the nice things is that your Renown is warband wide. Now, I really doubt the cap of 25 will matter that much, and that's because world quests, world events, and the big weekly quest, those only become available after the first weekly reset of the War Within, which of course will be on the 27th for the US,
How do you kill that which has no life?
I love blurps on Jesus.
So basically, your early access reputation sources will be quite limited. They'll mostly just be side quests and that sort of thing. You'll get a little bit of progression with your renowns, but nothing serious for endgame. Then, for professions, well, they are active and you can level them up, but there are restrictions on specialization points. Basically, any of those weekly sources of them just won't be available. We're not 100% sure if actually specs are just entirely disabled or if it's only the weekly sources of spec points that are turned off, but either way, you get the point here. What they want you to do is play the expansion, enjoy the content.
Yeah, enjoy the content, play expansion, but I do think professions are going to be the one way to truly get somewhat ahead in the early access period.
But not...
even if it comes down to just gathering resources, even if you're just mining or herbalizing the entire time, that's a good way to get ahead, because you're going to have way more than anybody else who's starting at the 26 when they do start.
Get any sort of unfair advantage. So, to make that clear then, here's what won't be available.
Yeah, I won't be doing
here's when content will become active. World quests and world events, with the world events being this expansion's equivalent to the likes of, say, the Tuskar Soup and such Dragonflight, those will be open with our first weekly reset, which is just a few hours after the game launches on the 26th. At least for the US, I think that's 6 hours after launch.
Wow.
Heroic Dungeons will also be open with the full launch of the game. And remember,
the big boy bosses are going to be available? I didn't realize that. Is that what he just said? because those guys actually drop loot and stuff too. That'll be a fun thing to do.
Dungeons drop gear that is quite a bit better than you will have remembered from, say, Dragonflight launch, and they are a good bit harder. So those will basically be your, like, pre-season source of gear. As for PvE gear upgrades, it seems they won't really be available during early access. You'll have noticed that the likes of Delves and normal dungeons, which will be your best early access sources of gear, well, they're dropping non-upgradable gear. So it's, again, very clear Blizzard do not really intend this to be something where, you know, you can just go hyper game, get a kitted out character. Also, the Great Vault will not be active at all during early access, meaning, yes, early access is about seeing content, exploring the world, and not getting back to the gear grind.
It's important to note because you will be able to do delves in early access period, but I believe you won't be able to really level them up, and they won't be contributing anything to the vault because, again, it's not going to be open until the season kicks off.
That's how those things work. Let's talk about the seasonal content so you know what's on the horizon. Season 1 is where the real endgame kicks off, and that begins September 10th for the US and 11th for the EU.
For almost everybody, this is when the expansion actually kicks off. For me, this is the casual, like, let's get excited about the War Within, and then this is the launch of the War Within. That's when really it starts. I mean, you're talking about raiding, Mythic Plusing. That's core retail WoW these days. So none of that's going to be available yet, but I actually really enjoy this time period. I feel like this is going to be nice and relaxing, no pressure. Just enjoy talking with chat, playing the game, reading the storylines. It's good. I'm excited for it. This is one of my, always, early launch time is my favorite time of the expansion.
Now, this is when the full range of content starts to become available, and I say
starts
because it isn't everything. So, let's break it down week by week. Week 1 of Season 1 brings us the first wing of LFR plus normal and heroic difficulties for the raid. Mythic 0 dungeons will also become available, and Delves Tier 4 through 11 will unlock, and along with that we also get the new Mage Tower style Delve, which is basically just a boss fight against one of Zal's.
So there you go, Tier 4 Delves. So that means you'll only be able to go up to 3 before the season unlocks. So that's probably how early access will work too.
Tassel Lieutenants.
Now that's levels
also,
of your
course,
delves.
when Season 1 of PvP will officially start, and that's one that's actually kind of exciting this time around. Basically, that's because Battleground Blitz is now official, which essentially means you can do solo queue, rated Battlegrounds, and you can properly gear up a character without having to do Arena, and of course that is Blizzard adding a new Battleground to the mix. Then finally, the Heroic Dungeon queue will switch over from being all of the launch expansions to being the Season 1 dungeon content. What that basically means is Arakara, City of Threads, Stone Vault, Dawnbreaker, and then some of our Shadowlands favorites, Mist of Tyrannosaith and Necrotic Wake, as well as Siege of Borealis and Grim Batol. And that brings me to week 2. So week 2 brings Mythic Raid, Mythic Plus Dungeons, LFR Wing 2, and Story Mode, with Story Mode basically being our new and strange way of doing a raid. It's very much launching in a V1 state.
Yeah, I commented on Story Mode the other day, because I'm like, really, you can't just do LFR if you want to, because Story Mode is supposed to be, people who want to experience the story of the raid, because, you know, the raid is very much core to the lore of World of Warcraft. I was like, why don't you just do LFR? And then somebody commented on the YouTube video that I said that comment in. They were like, have you ever tried Farak on LFR? It's an absolute crapshoot. You can't even get it done. You wipe like 16. And I didn't realize. I was like, okay, I guess I'm not the target audience. I guess it's really bad in LFR. Like, even with stacking, what's it called? Every time you die, you get a stack of that freaking buff. I guess it's just really bad. It's a complete shit show. So with this new story mode, you just won't be dependent on anybody. You just go in. It's like almost a single-player campaign. Just go in and do it and experience the story. Sham should invest in a wig. It is a shit show, obviously. Yeah, determination, yeah. I guess even with, she told me they got to 16 stacks of determination, still couldn't kill the boss. I was like, shit, that does sound bad.
So you can do the solo or with friends, and it's...
Razageth, yes, I misspoke. She said it was Razageth. You are right. Razageth was bad in LFR.
Only the final boss, right? So you just kill the final boss in a fairly easy pared down fashion, and it essentially exists less to give you a full narrative raid experience and more to just let people continue the end game campaign, right? Like knock out the boss, do the rest of the campaign, and see all of the content, rather than having to wait even more for the final LFR wing. Speaking of which, on week 3, which is September 24th or 25th for the EU, that sees the release of the third and final wing of LFR. And with that, well, that's basically it for the launch of this expansion. But that won't be all. Blizzard have actually recently said that, number one, there's going to be a Warcraft Direct, which will be some sort of stream giving us a bunch of updates later on in the year. And they've said that October will see basically like events and that kind of thing go on.
I'm not going to lie, I was kind of surprised they weren't going to do a BlizzCon, because we're going to have such rapid expansion launches. At least that's the plan. Like, we're not supposed to be in the War Within for 2 years. We're supposed to get Midnight probably in a year and a half-ish, year, 8 months. Like, that's the timeline they're looking at. So I would think they were going to have a BlizzCon at least to announce more Midnight stuff. But I guess not. We're going to just have like some online Blizzard thing. They'll probably talk about the big patch that's coming out at that time for the War Within, and maybe hint at some Midnight stuff. I guess we'll see. But yeah, no BlizzCon.
Because it's the 20th anniversary of the game. And then we've also seen that an encrypted build of patch 11.0.5 has hit Blizzard's test servers. Of course, we can't really tear into that yet, but basically it does seem that they're ready for quite a bit of content afterwards. If you're wondering what you should do, right? Well, yeah, it'll be a bit strange logging into the 22nd and having to wait like 2.5 weeks for what we would usually just be like thinking about for our WoW content, but I wouldn't really worry. There is a shitload of stuff to do.
And you hear the key to what he just said? 2.5 weeks. You're not going to have shit to really do on the end game. What does that mean? Take your damn time. Take your damn time. Enjoy it. Level up alts too if you want. Just relax. I feel like a lot of WoW players and gamers in general these days, they just want to like their goal is just finish everything. Finish it as fast as possible. There's no point in that. You're not going to speed up the expansion if you do that. You're just going to freaking leave yourself with nothing to do. So just enjoy it. Walk through. Smell the roses in Hallowfall. Take your time.
Number one, with this, there's no better time to level your alts, and War Within has even got a nice little boost in the form of your Warband bonuses. So, you get a 5% XP boost for every level 80, with that capping at a 25% boost for having a total of 5. Now, if you combine that with the War Mode XP boost, then you really will be just flying through the levels. So, that's one thing for you to do. The other then is side quests. You can do those to progress your renowns. That'll be dead handy as well, because they are account-wide. And so if you want to properly progress that, but also level up some alts, what you can do is just level up your main character by, of course, doing the campaign and a few side quests here and there. What I then plan to do is to level up my other 2 alts by basically 100%ing the first 2 zones and the last 2 zones. That should be enough for me to get a fairly different leveling experience on every one of those characters. I'll literally see all of the content, but, of course, because our renowns are account-wide, I'll actually still be getting full progress on all of those. And while I don't think we'll be able to get anywhere near to the renown cap of 25 during early access, we will be able to make a start, and that will be quite handy. I mean, early on, at about rank like 7 or 8 for 3 of the renowns, you get veteran gear that's item level 584, so even just that as an early target will be handy for getting other characters geared up. Then of course there's professions where the usual expansion launch thing applies, where the gathering ones are probably going to be a really big money maker if you just want simple, reliable money.
That's what it is. If you really want to just bank gold, like, and you have early access, just running around and gathering freaking mining nodes and herbalism nodes, like that's gonna be the way. Anybody who does that during this period, you even might just skip leveling altogether and just do that. Just go through the zones and herbalize and do all that shit, because flying is going to be available too. Dynamic flying will be available, so you can just fly around, gather shit, and put it on the age.
Basically, early on, people just go mad trying to level their professions fast, and that usually sends the price of materials soaring. The only thing, though, is that with specialization points only kicking off with the full War Within launch, we could see the market dynamics change a little bit, but I do think the typical wisdom of just gathering being a high ROI activity early on, I think that will still hold. So that'll be more than enough to keep you going for a few days. Once full release happens, you'll be able to hop into heroic dungeons and ideally get yourself decked out in pre-season best in slot gear. Then, of course, renown for each faction, and that just means doing plenty of events, plenty of world quests, and a few unique things that are there for each renown. As an example, with Aj Kahet, It's actually 3 characters, and you can progress with one of them each week, and it's even got its own zone-specific currency, so there's quite a lot there. And then there's all the other stuff, like knocking down your zone-specific achievements, killing all of the rares too, I guess, get the achievements, but also some of the unique things that they'll drop, as well as collecting the questing and dungeoning transits.
That might be a fun thing to do if we hit cap level pretty quick in early access, is like maybe some achievement chasing and stuff. That could be fun.
Which, honestly, this time around look really good, especially the Hallowfall one. Now, the other main thing that I'll be doing will be practicing. That also means it's a perfect time to hone my key bindings and hone my UI, and if you would like a pretty handy guide for doing that, well, the good news is we've released a video on the channel, but if you want to take a look over at bellular.games, we've got a full written guide, we've got our guide into choosing a spec that you'll enjoy, and a whole bunch of other things. So you can support us there, get even more content, and hours of lore podcasts to listen to while you do things over in Kaz-Elgar. But if you want to check out another video, well, I definitely recommend the key binding one. I think you'll get a lot of value out of it.
Nice. Good video from Bellular. I guess, guys, to summarize what he went through here, what's going to be the thing to do? Take your damn time. Enjoy the experience of leveling up. You get some extra days ahead of everybody else to just relax. And even people who are launching on the regular day of the expansion, even them, they're not going to be able to do anything until September 10th, until the actual season launches and everything. So just take your time. Enjoy the process. And if you want to make some gold, yeah, gathering professions are going to be the way to go for sure. If you really want to be just a gold, basically a rat-ass goblin, essentially.